Today, millions of Filipinos travel and work abroad with the goal to support their families back home. Apart from that, our OFWs were also responsible for contributing to our economic stability by increasing the remittances in our country, which has resulted in a higher standard of living and a more disposable income in the Philippines. Through this cycle, our economy continued to recover and grow upward. However, despite their positive recognition and contributions to their families and our country, some of our OFWs experienced difficulties, challenges, and even abuse overseas. Regardless, they remain strong and resilient. With this, it is critical for us to have a deeper look on the situation of our OFWs from the past up to this day. During the Marcos regime, Ferdinand Marcos launched different states' labor export programs. However, lacks protection and support to our overseas Filipino workers. To some, this era marked the beginning of labor exports, as Marcos enacted a labor code that encourages overseas contract work. However, according to Jeremiah Opiniano, Executive Director of the Institute for Migration and Development Issues, labor export was only a response to the Middle East labor shortage and a political tool utilized by Marcos. Furthermore, what worsened the condition of our OFWs under Marcos' presidency was the enactment of EO 857, which enforced the receipt of remittances. This has compelled OFWs, particularly seamen, doctors, and engineers, to remit 50% to 70% of their total monthly earnings and has prohibited them from using non-banking channels such as Padala system and forced them to only use government-authorized channels. Worse, those who did not comply face punitive measures, such as losing their rights to renew their contracts and passports, thus prohibiting them from working abroad. When Filipinos chose and pushed Corazon Aquino for presidency, she initially expressed reluctance. However, when she came to power, she immediately addressed the country's problems, including the OFWs, as a way to regain recognition and treatment they deserve. With this, she was associated and attached to our overseas Filipino workers. According to the paper of Jean Encinas Franco, entitled Overseas Filipino Workers as Heroes, Cory Aquino's involvement and commitment to OFWs began when her husband was assassinated. This fueled Cory's desire to seek justice for Ninoy's killing and escape from the sufferings our country was experiencing that time. To further support her campaign, her followers gathered 1 million signatures to encourage her and continue her impeded candidacy. Alongside the support, Aquino and her family experienced numerous threats and coup d'etats. However, she remained strong and fought for what is right. In this regard, her resilience and courage was recognized as heroic act, as she had to bear sufferings and sacrifices in order to oppose Ferdinand Marcos and save the Philippines from destruction.
These sufferings and sacrifices have eventually equated to what our late President Cory Aquino had contributed to the OFW's protection, wellness, and recognition. As reiterated by our dear professor, OFWs were put in a pedestal by Mrs. Aquino. She introduced the term Bagong Bayani to recognize each and every OFW's sacrifice and suffering just to provide for their families at the expense of them being away from home. She even signed Proclamation number 276 declaring December 1988 and the same month of every year as the month of overseas Filipinos. This is to ceremoniously acknowledge their contribution to the restoration of the Philippines' democracy and economy. And to mention, one of her greatest achievements for this advocacy was when she removed the required remittance for each OFWs that was imposed during the Marcos regime. This in return gave them the financial freedom that they deserve. Right now, Filipino overseas workers continue to receive numerous benefits and recognition by succeeding administrations after the late President Cory Aquino. One example is the RA 8042, an act that instituted the policies of overseas employment and established a higher standard of protection and promotion of the welfare of migrant workers, their families, and overseas Filipinos in distress. Another one is the RA 10022, an act that is responsible for the regulation and management of overseas from the pre-employment stage, securing the best possible employment, terms and conditions for overseas Filipinos. These are just some of the many acts, laws, and programs that were customarily made to protect and honor OFWs here in the Philippines. However, these benefits and glory also have its negative side effects. One crucial factor is the loss of skilled and professional workers that could have been our greatest treasures here in our country. We also believe that although their sacrifices were heroic, they actually deserved better. They shouldn't have been forced to work away from home just to get the benefits, the salaries, and the comfortable life that they wanted their families to enjoy. But right now, since not much can really be done to fully turn things around, the only thing we can do is to recognize and support each and every Filipinos overseas that work day and night for their families and subsequently for our dear country.
It saddens us to hear or see Filipinos going abroad to seek better opportunities. We cannot blame them for wanting a better life since we have limited opportunities for everyone here in our country. It is hard to move when one has no money that could help them move forward. Our government failed to provide quality of service that could diminish the number of Filipinos going abroad. And because of personal interest by the public officials, impoverished Filipinos were affected more. With this, the government imposed that they failed to protect its citizens. Going abroad is a risk one must face just to put a meal on their family's table. Normalizing or romanticizing it by calling them a hero will never reciprocate the danger they might face. We should never be proud of it. Filipinos became well known as modern slaves by other races. The word Bagong Bayani is a cover-up to compensate for the government's incompetence to provide job opportunities to the Filipinos. After all, no one would hate the idea that they are addressed as the Bagong Bayani, right?
Overall, the overseas Filipino workers are known as the advanced time legends, wherein they have nearly their beginning and end to our fate for their better future. Clearly, the penances they have shown can some way or another not be seen by their families, for they can just see the hand that is supportive of their own greatness, however not the hand that gives penances to give the blessings they have needed. They regularly feel desolate and homesick, yet they actually figure out how to persevere through all the depression they are experiencing for the betterment of their family. For a case they became ill, the one in particular that they have is their own self and no other person. Another is that they need to financially plan their compensation appropriately for their own costs down to the cash that they will be sending to their families here. Truly, the overseas Filipino worker stands out in each move they make and on the penances they make, for they owe to be compensated appropriately and as per the finances and endeavors they have shown.